Picture this. You're in aisle 4 of the grocery store. Your cart is absolutely full, and out of nowhere, your 2-year-old is having a massive meltdown. Why? Because you wouldn't let them hold a shattered cracker, right? Your heart rate spikes, you can feel the stares from other shoppers boring into you like spotlights. It's intense. But hey, before you spiral into that inevitable parental guilt, let's take a beat. Let's actually look at what's happening right beneath the surface here.
There's a quote that I think completely reframes this whole nightmare scenario. This isn't defiance. It's an SOS from a brain under construction. See, when a toddler lobs a bowl of cereal across the room or screams right in your face, the data tells us they are not staging some calculated evil manipulation. No, they're actually waving a red flag. They are asking you for help in literally the only raw, unfiltered way they currently know how.
So welcome to this explainer on Toddler Tantrums Demystified, the science of calm. Today, we are diving deep into the neuroscience and the clinical data behind why toddlers do what they do. Because by understanding the actual literal biology of these meltdowns, we can unlock a really practical playbook, one that transforms our response from total frustration to genuine connection. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The brain under construction.
To really wrap our heads around these behaviors, we gotta look inside a 2-year-old's developing brain. I want you to think of their emotional world like a high-powered sports car. The engine of that car? That's the amygdala. This is the brain's emotional alarm system. It detects threats, it triggers the fight-or-flight response, and in a toddler, this amygdala is fully developed. It is hyperactive. But the brakes? That's the prefrontal cortex. The executive control center that handles impulse control and calming down. Well, in a 2-year-old, the prefrontal cortex is basically an active construction zone. So you've got this massive engine of raw, unbridled emotion running at top speed and absolutely no brakes to slow it down. It makes sense why, to their amygdala, a broken banana feels like an existential crisis, right?
Now, you might be wondering, why do these two brain parts struggle so much to communicate? Well, it all comes down to a really fascinating process called myelination. Think of myelination as the insulation that wraps around the brain's electrical wires to make signals travel faster. Because this insulation is super incomplete during the toddler years, the regulatory pause signal from the prefrontal cortex, it just travels way too slowly. By the time the logical thought arrives to say, hey buddy, it's just a banana, let's calm down, the emotional explosion has already happened. The physical wires literally just aren't insulated yet.
Section 2. The 2 phases of a tantrum.
Okay, so while a tantrum looks like pure, unadulterated chaos to us, clinical observations show they actually follow a highly predictable pattern. A tantrum is made up of 2 overlapping phases. That first minute, that's rapid onset anger. The absolute peak intensity of kicking, screaming, the whole shebang. But as we move into minutes 2 through 4, you'll notice this anger slowly declines and shifts into distress. This is the whining, comfort-seeking phase. Basically, they've realized their anger isn't going to change the situation, so they shift into this state of vulnerability. And by minute 5, they are primed for co-regulation and soothing.
Knowing this timeline is an absolute game changer. It reveals a massive light bulb moment. If you try to physically intervene or logic with a child during that peak anger phase, you actually prolong the high arousal state. When their autonomic arousal is maxed out, that prefrontal cortex is completely offline. If you grab them, their hyperactive amygdala just perceives your intervention as an escalating physical threat. So, what's the most effective clinical protocol here? Simple. Make sure they are physically safe, step back, and literally just wait for that anger phase to burn itself out.
Section 3. The STAR assessment.
So knowing the timeline helps, but how do we actually survive that peak anger phase without losing it ourselves? Let's look at the STAR protocol. Notice how the first 3 steps of this evidence-based tool are entirely focused on you, the adult. Step 1 is self-check. An escalated adult cannot de-escalate an escalated child. It just doesn't work. Step 2. Take a breath. A nice slow exhalation physically triggers your own parasympathetic downregulation. Step 3 is assess the environment. Look around. Are they just tired? Are they overstimulated? And finally, step 4. Once the child naturally enters that distress phase we talked about, respond with clear, low-word boundaries. By doing this, your settled nervous system basically acts as an anchor for their chaotic one.
Section 4. Practical parenting tools. So once you're in that distress phase, clinical research points us to a few super actionable strategies. First is name it to tame it. This just validates their feelings without trying to fix the problem. It helps them feel seen. Then try offering limited choices. Like, instead of a blanket command, ask if they want to wear their red shoes or blue shoes. This bypasses their resistance and preserves that budding sense of autonomy. Next is positive opposites. Instead of saying what they shouldn't do, shift the focus to what they should do. And if you're dealing with physical aggression, redirecting that energy into tossing a pillow in the air or stomping around like a dinosaur gives them a safe way to burn off the adrenaline with a simple focus.
Section 5. Taming Techno Tantrums. Okay, this brings us to a very modern, very frustrating challenge: screen time meltdowns. Here's the deal. Interactive screens totally exploit the brain's dopamine loop. When your kid is playing a game on a tablet, their brain is getting flooded with dopamine, which is that chemical linked to pleasure. But when you abruptly take that screen away, those dopamine levels crash instantly. The tantrum that follows is a literal neurochemical withdrawal. It's an acute physiological distress response. It is not calculated bad behavior. So your best defense here is being proactive. Use built-in timers so the device plays the bad guy and transition them directly into a highly engaging physical activity to bridge that gap.
Section 6. Clinical red flags versus normal behavior.
Now, it's important to know when to seek extra help, and comparing typical behavior to potential red flags gives us a really clear diagnostic framework. Typical meltdowns usually wrap up in under 15 minutes. They are goal-driven, like wanting a toy, and the child eventually responds to comfort. But clinical red flags? Those include episodes that consistently stretch way past the 25-minute mark, or tantrums that appear completely unprovoked, just out of the blue. Or if the child remains entirely inconsolable, showing minimal response when you try to soothe them. If your child's behavior consistently hits these red flags, it is a loving, incredibly proactive step to go ahead and consult with a professional.
But for the vast majority of caregivers tuning in, the research provides some immense reassurance. Listen to this. 87% of all 18 to 24-month-olds have temper tantrums. Almost 90%. It is a universal, evolutionary milestone in human development. I really want you to hear this. You are not failing as a parent, and your child is exactly where they are supposed to be developmentally.
Section 7. Redefining the meltdown.
Ultimately, we have to remember, we aren't just managing bad behavior here. We are nurturing a future emotionally intelligent human. Every single time you manage to stay calm and offer a patient response to an outburst, you are literally wiring their brain. You are physically helping to build that prefrontal cortex. You're constructing the emotional regulation tools that they're going to rely on for the rest of their lives. So, the next time the storm hits in aisle 4 of the grocery store, how will you use your calm to build their brain?